Okay, Anthony Butt joins me here in Melbourne. Hello, Ants.
Yeah, how you going, Paul?
Plenty happening in the world of harness racing. I thought I'd catch up with you. Plenty of good, positive things, especially Victorian harness racing at the minute, which is terrific.
Yeah, we've been in the bit of the doldrums for a couple of years, Paul, but no, things are looking up, and no, you know, the board's sort of had a hard job, but they're getting there.
It is a thankless job, we must say that. Just want to touch on one thing. The last time I seen you, you were horizontal in a sulky, and it didn't look good, and then even the aftermath after that didn't look real great either. Everything's okay after that nasty little incident?
Still a bit sore, coming right though. Yeah, I broke a couple of vertebrae in my back when that horse, the bit broke and he bolted, and then I was going all right till I hit that big ditch. And I actually seen the stewards footage the other night, first time I'd seen it, and how high I went and then how I landed. It must have landed on the cart, the back of the cart sort of thing. And but yeah, I was pretty sore for a few days, and yeah, but a couple of weeks it didn't improve at all, but then after that it sort of got better every day. So still a couple of little things I've got to watch, but no, it's all good.
One of the sad parts about getting older, it just seems to take that little bit longer, doesn't it, to get over things for some reason. So it's very unfortunate. We must say also well done to the clerks of the courses. We take them for granted. They're always there yelling at us to get out onto the track and things along those lines, but you know, pretty much saved you that on that occasion because you were in a lot of trouble otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Like Taylor Markham, she caught the horse, you know, he had no bridle obviously, and luckily he had a pole holder on, she could grab that, but yeah, he was out of control. He's a bit of a mad horse anyway, so he didn't need much encouragement, but he just said I'd broken my back by that stage and was winded, so I couldn't do much. Not that I could anyway, but no, he just said you don't realise till situations like that how valuable they are.
Yep, exactly, and some countries don't have them, and I can't work that one out. Right, plenty happening. I suppose we start off with a couple of weeks ago there was an announcement, well not a week, it was probably only a week ago. We're going to get concessions back here in Victoria for 2 and 3 year olds. I know it's something that a lot of people have been championing and trying to get across from the owners and trainers' point of view. You guys must be wrapped in that, and then as a trainer yourself, I would imagine you're wrapped in it.
Yeah, it seemed to be that we were the only sort of state that didn't have it, or the major states, so we wanted to get sort of, you know, in comparison to the other states, and with a few numbers thrown around which we should go to, but after sort of talking to as many people as we could, and we'll come up with what we did, and yeah, hopefully be a big improvement for especially for the 2 and 3 year olds.
And these concessions only apply when they're in their own age. When they're racing older horses is actually how they work, isn't it? So it's designed that once they're stepping outside of their grade, if you like, they're able to get a concession back that little bit. Yeah,
like in a perfect world, you know, 2 year olds would only ever race 2 year olds, and 3 year olds the same, but it doesn't work like that. And so yeah, this way they can take on the older horses and get a decent sort of drop back.
It's actually an interesting one. You got that Kiwi twang to you. They've actually gone the opposite way a little bit this year, and I think they're possibly experiencing a few issues with that, where they're saying that the 2 year olds only race the 2 year olds. In years gone by, they used to be able to race the older horses, but now they've changed it that they're only racing 2 year olds, and probably, well, I know they're struggling to get some fields off the ground and then racing a lot of small fields, which is never ideal for punting turnover.
No, that's right. Like all the information we get from HRV, you know, Glenn Lee and guys like that, like the full fields are so important for turnover. And as you know, I'd seen a graph the other day where it just went up like that. Basically, we're going from 8 starters to 9 to 10 to 12. It's amazing how big a difference 12 starters make. So yeah, New Zealand, whether they're thinking long term, I don't really know. I haven't had any consultation with them over there, but yeah, as you said, there's been a lot of small fields going around for the 2 year olds lately, especially.
Yeah, and we don't want that here. We've already got diminished stake money. We want to make sure that people are punting on it. As you say, that 8 to 10 and go from 10 to 12 horse fields, the punting turnover is through the roof on those, and that's what we want, so we need to be able to maximise it. So I think it's great, and then if that means a 2 year old has to make up an older horse field to get it to that 10 horse starters, well, it's going to be good.
Yeah, that's right, and it's a hard one because sometimes with the 2 year old, especially one starting off, like you don't really want to race the other good 2 year olds, especially the top liners, so it's actually probably easier to go in a maiden race or something like that. So this way they'll get or at least into the ranking system, a bit lower. So we'll probably got the best of both worlds.
Do you enjoy the ranking system? So I'll let you think about it for 2 seconds, but some horses it really works terrific, and then other horses it just seems to be a head scratcher how they get to where they are so quickly. Do you actually enjoy it?
No, I think it's got its plus and minuses. It's something we've talked about a lot over the last probably couple of years, and I think it's great for the older horses that used to get on their mark, Whereas now they never get on the mark, they just go up and down the system at the lower grades. But it's really tough on horses that say win a race or two in their first few starts.
Yep.
You know, all of a sudden they go from a maiden or a 50 ranker, you know, they can be up to sort of 60 pretty quick. So it's really tough on them. So no, I don't think it's ideal. I don't see how it can work long term when, you know, like say in a 12 horse race, 7 horses are losing points and 1's going up. So sooner or later we're going to end up with everything at the bottom, and we're probably getting to that stage now. So no, we're being big on maybe having a really big, good look at things. You know, I said the other day, I know Harness Racing Australia came out with that system last year, a few tweaks, and we sort of moved to shut it down because we didn't think there was enough consultation done on it, and then we didn't want it coming in too quick. So, you know, I said at a meeting not long ago, I said, why don't we get 6 or 8 of the best minds from around Australia, and I said, lock them in a room for 2 days and they come up with a better handicapping system. So, you know, I know there's no perfect system, but you know, I'm sure there could be ways to improve what we've got.
It is hard. Myself and Marie, we've got a horse at the minute called Mac Flick. I think she's had 13 starts, won 4 of those. She's above 60 rated trotter now, but she's always there in the market and she's always thereabouts. So if you have your horse training hat on, you say, gee, she's getting on a mark too quick, she's almost got to come down now and race metropolitan horses, you know, those horses on the fringes of making metro horses all the time, because it's hard for the handicappers to put country races on that. But from my point of view as a promoter, you've got a horse that's had 13 starts, won 4, you know, what a great story it is. It's an up-and-coming horse. It is that sort of grey area, and it's a little bit of a juggle on how to, I suppose, best fit some of these horses, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's right. It's really hard, Paul, because as you said, your horse is probably the prime example of one that's won, you know, 4 races pretty quick, and all of a sudden they're up there. But in saying that, you know, it does cater for the horses that, you know, are dropping down. And, you know, as I said, like once upon a time you'd win your 4 races, you'd be on your mark and you'd get rid of that horse to another state. Whereas now you don't have to get rid of it. You can keep it, you know, they might have to go around a few times, lose some points, and then you're back competitive again. So, you know, there is pluses. So, as I said, I think we just got to get the right mix and maybe a few tweaks here and there. And, you know, there's never going to be a perfect system. And I remember I was in New Zealand, you know, probably 15 years ago. I was on a handicapping subcommittee, and, you know, we met regularly for weeks and weeks trying to get a better handicapping system in New Zealand, and I come away thinking, well, the best handicapping system in the world is not to have one, is have a
bit like New South Wales sort of do in some of those bigger meetings where you all just nominate?
Just nominate and get the right guy to pick out 10 even fields, but you couldn't do it because there'd be too many complaints, and the poor guy picking the fields would probably get shot sooner or later. So they
do a similar thing though in New South Wales, don't they? Where they I think class a race and you nominate, and then they assess you through your classes depending on how they claim it. I think so. Yeah. So I think that does work to a degree. Yeah.
Well, I actually used to love that when I trained in New South Wales. I used to love the metro system there, where once you'd won your sort of MO, this is back in the MO days, got to sort of M1 and you were chucked in the pool and you would nominate, and they might get 4 races out of those. But it was all done on stake money last 5 starts. So, you know, sometimes you get chucked in deep. So you'd won a heap in the country, and then won your MO, you might be in deep for a start or 2, but then you find your level, and, you know, you might have a horse that can't really go with the free-for-allers, but he's really good the next grade down, and, you know, you might end up in the free-for-allers once or twice, and but then if you're down the track, you're back in the next grade and you can be competitive again. And I loved that. So I thought it was really good, but it was really easy to angle with the 10 across the front and with the preferential barrier draw all on stake money last 5 starts.
Yeah, well, and a smaller pool of horses back then. I mean, now it's definitely changed. Up there they've got a lot more horses, but yeah, it does tend to work, and it does. It probably for the punter, because one thing, punters love consistency, but they also like to be able to find that odd one. So you've got a horse that all of a sudden's got winning form and he's against the better horses. They say, well, he can't win. It's just because he's been winning lower races. So it throws that little bit of intrigue, if you like, into it, and they can bet against each other as well. So you get a little bit of a betting product that's also consistent, because like you said then, you race week in, week out, and you find your own level.
Yeah, and the barrier draws used to come into it a lot.
Yeah.
You know, you might end up in a tougher race, but you'll draw 1 or 2, and so you got that advantage. And then, you might drop down and in the next level down it's a weaker field, but you draw bad. So yeah, I thought it worked really good, but it would be bit harder to implement in Victoria with their second row barrier draw.
Little brother highlighted one the other day at Maryborough that was a shocker. I think 2 horses that had won a race each were given 30 metre start to a couple of horses that had won over 10. We've got to stop that sort of thing as well, because that's not great for anyone in the gold, even the punter. It just doesn't seem right to have those sort of oddities, if you like.
No, and even Brent Lilly was talking to me the other day about there was an occasion, I think, with one of his trotters that it hadn't won a race as a maiden, but it was off 10 metres or 20 metres or something. So, yeah, like things like that. Just, if you're a maiden, you're a maiden, really.
I couldn't agree more. Put them all. No, we won't even go there. They'll go there. The Summer Carnival just announced, I think yesterday, Revamped Summer Carnival. For a start, your initial thoughts on it when you saw it, especially like we say, we've been having a lot of downs, if you like, in Victoria, but this looks very positive on paper.
Yeah, it looks really good, Paul. It's going to make Victoria the destination for that, 5 or 6 weeks, and I've heard there's maybe talk of a little bonus sort of coming in there somewhere. Like, hopefully Swayze didn't put the insurers off last year, but something like that. It's going to be a lot of choice, and the only downside I could see is the horses are going to pick and choose a little bit of those lead-up races heading into the Hunter Cup, because you can't go in them all. So
that's what I wanted to ask you. You Kilmore Cup into the Hunter Cup. Is that doable, or is that going to potentially affect the Kilmore Cup? Like you've won quite a few Kilmore Hunter Cups, like 6, 7. I'm going to go with
7. Yeah,
7. Is that doable the week before and then going back into the Hunter Cup?
Well, some horses it'll suit and some horses it won't. I know Leap to Fame raced the week before last year, and that free for all at Melton and won. So a horse like him, it wouldn't worry. Catch a Wave, Andy always likes sort of racing him, before a big race. So a horse like that, it won't worry. Then there'll be the other ones that like a 2-week gap. So,
which then they have Ballarat.
Yeah, so it'll cater for everybody, but you just won't get them all meeting until the Hunter Cup, I don't think. Yeah, which is probably not a bad thing. We'll
get back to our betting turnover. That's probably a good thing. I apologise. I think it's Cranbourne is the week before Kilmore. It gets a bit confusing. I think it goes Bendigo, Shep, Ballarat, Cranbourne, Kilmore, and then into the Hunter Cup. So it's going to be massive, though. Massive for the industry, I think, and good combination of trotters and pacers. So we could get 20, 30 of the best horses in Australasia racing in Victoria over that Summer Carnival.
Yeah, and what you'll find is, like, the trainers will, like, say, the Grant Dixons and, the Mark Purdens and people like that, and Crandall Getty, that they'll bring their good horses, but they'll bring others as well, because they're going to be here for 5 or 6 weeks. It's a pain being here with one horse, so you may as well have 3 or 4, so or more. So you'll find that'll happen. So now it's going to be, as I said before, Victoria's going to be the destination for those 5 or 6 weeks.
Put your Kiwi hat on for a minute. Does it fit time-wise with them? I know Alexandra Park rescheduled their carnivals. Is it going to affect that? Like, are we going to get a lot of the Kiwis, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it'll worry. I think the Auckland Cup's gone back to New Year's Eve. Is that right? And,
not sure. Yeah.
And then there's a pretty big gap till... the race by Betcher at Cambridge, April. Which is April. So yeah, it's a big gap, and the Kiwis have always like to come over for that time of January, February, March. This will lead into the Miracle Mile, obviously. So no, I think it fits in really good, and it's not hard to do with our calendar. Around Australasia, really, to fit all these big races in. So, no, it fits in really good.
And it's important to get the message out there now. That's half the reason I'm doing this. At the minute, we want to make sure people are aware of it and can set their horses for it.
Yeah, well, I sent the Photoshop of it to Tat McLeod's owners yesterday, so...
Is he back in work? I was actually talking to Mark the other day. I don't know if he's back in work or not.
I think he's just jogging. Last time I talked, the owners have got him back down in Invercargill, Trev and Di, so he's back down there, so they'll just probably work him through the winter, I'd say, and he'll head up to Canterbury in the spring.
Well, and they're the things that probably could come out of this Summer Carnival as well. Anyone wondering, he got a golden ticket. He was one, I think, the first golden ticket into the New Zealand Cup. And I remember when it came about, I'm like, oh yeah, well, he's going to go around in the New Zealand Cup. Yep, good luck to him, connections, because his form was moderate, to sort of say the least. By the time he came out of the New Zealand Cup, he was one of the hottest properties. He came over here and just kept excelling. That could happen with our Summer Carnival here, the way it's worked. Like a horse that may win the Bendigo Cup, might not even win it, but by the time you get around to the Hunter Cup, it's come from nowhere because of that condensed racing, if you like. Yeah,
and that's what, I speak to a lot of the New Zealand trainers. They do have a little concern that in New Zealand in the spring, there's not a lot of, there's a few races, but most of them are sort of not hard racing, and the ones I've talked to, a lot of them standing starts, they get away and they walk around, and then run 400 metres, so it's not really conditioning them for a hard, solid 2-mile New Zealand Cup. And we've probably seen that in the last, few years where the Aussies have come over and dominated. So, especially Swayze raced Friday night at Young last year, and a lot of the New Zealand horses will benefit out of it coming in, have been a bit of hard racing, and you'll see a better product at the end of it.
It's actually pretty cool you think about it. I was just thinking then, because Kaikoura was always a traditional, one of those good lead-up races, and you're right, generally the leader gets to the front, gets away with modest quarters because it's too hard to attack, two wide, let alone 3 wide, around there as a lead-up. So that's actually something I've never really thought about lately. I know years ago it used to be the perfect form race, but it's probably just wavered that little bit now just because of positioning and who gets to the front.
Yeah, and especially now with the Aussies coming over so regularly that, we have the Victoria Cup in October, so they have a good lead into that, so they get that good, hard, tough racing, and, our racing is probably a little bit run a bit more solidly than the lead-ups to the New Zealand Cup. So as you said, they go over there, hard and fit, so they're hard to beat.
Do you enjoy the Trans-Tasman? You guys, yourself and Tim, for years have done it. Brent Lilly have done it for years and years. It's going to really evolve, I believe, now, because they do have a lot of prize money in New Zealand at the minute. We're going to have carnivals like the Inter-Dominion through winter time. There's a lot of trotters. Unfortunately, it looks like there may only be 2 paces going there, but we want to be able to build it. From my point of view, I think it's crazy not to be able to build it and grow it. Do you enjoy that side of things, though, in the direction the industry might go?
Oh, I think it's fantastic, and it always has been, Paul. Like, I remember coming over, back in the day with Blossom Lady. It was such a big event to actually come, and it did get more regular after that. And but no, as you said, the Kiwis dominated trotters and paces for a long time, and right at the moment the tide's turned. With Just Believe, what he did in the last couple of years, and RC Phoenix winning the trot, and Kang Zahara, that's just the trotters, and then we've got Swayze and Leap to Fame that have dominated the pacing ranks. So for years and years, right through my life, New Zealand has always been the dominant sort of breed of horse, and Aussie would always come up with a freak, regularly, but for depth, New Zealand always had it on Aussie. But, I think in the last 10 years, the tide's turned, and, it's probably the exact opposite now. There's not a lot of depth in New Zealand right at the moment, but, they'll bounce back.
It is a funny one, though. Like the Republican Party, a horse close to you and your family, he's blossomed since chasing those couple of horses home, if you like, and been able to win, I think, 3 Group 1s, or 1 Group 1 at the end of the year and then 2 so far this year. But then he doesn't go to the Inter-Dominion because he doesn't want to go and take on Larry, which we sort of all understand. So it sort of robs, like, a little bit, there's sort of 2 sides to it, isn't it, about the competition, but also, I suppose, not having that competition as well because there's good prize money in New Zealand, so they'll stay in New Zealand and race for that as well. Yeah,
it's a hard one. As you said, we've found for years that if you chuck those horses in the deep end, they'll sink or swim, and some of them come out of it way better, and so, a horse like Republican Party is a perfect example, and Tack McLeod come over here with racing the hustle and bustle of, Leap to Fame and Swayze week in and week out, and they just got better and better, and they'll be better horses for it back in New Zealand, this year. So, and Queensland's a hard one, like it's... these horses, especially the Republican Party, they've had a big year already, and they've only just finished racing, only a couple of weeks ago, and they've probably got to have a spell at some stage. And I know Cran and Carter would have loved to have taken him there, but probably Larry's the reason they're not. And I was talking to them the other day, and I said, you can't just base your decisions on one horse because, you never know if he gets crooked or something and he's out, then the series is wide open. But, if they have a break now, they're going to have a really, get into New Zealand Cup, and then have a, it's going to go for the next 6 months after that with their carnival, Sydney, Auckland. It's so much race for those good horses now, so it's hard to take everything in. Yeah, it is. I could talk to you for zonks about a lot of things. I could ask a lot more about the New Zealand racing too. I enjoy that part of it. From the owners and trainers' point of view, President, you're happy with how things are going? You're not going to be happy with lack of prize money, so anyone waiting for him to turn around and say, he doesn't say anything about prize money, that's out of our hands. But the direction the industry's going, can you see some stuff on the horizon there people can be positive about? Yeah, I think so, Paul. I think we've made massive, leaps in the last sort of few months. We've come from a situation where 3 years ago we were losing 36 million a year, and where next year we're on budget to break even. So that's a massive turnaround, and we've all had to suffer the cuts, the prize money and that kind of thing, but at the end of the day you can only spend what you earn, and and that was been our trouble for too long, that they were spending money they didn't have, and but we seem to have some really good people on the board now, and Matt Osdick, I've got a lot of time for him. I work closely with Matt, and I think he's done a great job, as I said, bringing that debt down from 36 million a year to going to be nothing next year. So that we're at rock bottom right now, and there's only one way we can go from here is up. And I think there's a few positives. Obviously we own a big block of land at Melton that's worth a lot of money, and so that's our backbone really, and we've just got to manage that right and get the right result there, and we'll be away. And I sort of compare it to New Zealand. 5 years ago New Zealand was down and out, and they were lucky Intane come along and it's turned it round, and we'll be the same.
I was over there, I think it was only 3 years ago, when they were going to have, I think it was $500 off every race. And it was the most depressing place you could have been. And I think I went back 5-6 weeks later, and Intane had come to, and it's still bubbling over now. People are so happy. So it can turn. Unfortunately, we haven't turned quite as quick as that. But there's nothing to say that it couldn't happen here. And it's not just Victorian harness racing. I mean, there's been a lot of cuts just happened in the last week to industries associated with racing here in Victoria, but it's worldwide. I got told the other day, I think there's 20 million euro come out of French racing. Not harness racing, French racing, full stop. It's worldwide, the restructure and the way racing has to look at itself. So the fact that we may be at rock bottom, but we are sustainable, it can only be a tick for us. Yeah,
that's right. You look around the world, Paul, I seen that thing on France the other day, and American harness racing, they've got their issues,
Some states are going through the roof. But then California, there's no racing anymore. They shut it down cold. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I just stopped California the other day, the last track in California. And, back years ago when I was a kid, California was massive. And, really worried about New Jersey. They got one track left, the Meadowlands, and run by a fantastic guy called Jeff Garrell. But, he's getting older and older, and, he won't be around forever. So you really worry. Some of the other states are going good, Kentucky and the Midwest, things like that. But, yeah, it's a worldwide problem, and, there's... as we all know, life's changed, probably since COVID. People have, there's so much to do with your money and time, and, harness racing is not the, the be-all and end-all it once was. So we've just got to accept that reality, and, there's going to be changes for some clubs and tracks, and, that's unfortunate. But as I said, we couldn't go along losing 36 million a year. So
no.
We've just got to restructure and, get it right so that we're... back to break even, and then we can look to move forward and upwards.
You're probably privy to a lot of things that other people aren't, myself included, and I don't want you to expand on them, but can you see it being positive for our industry going forward?
Yep, I can. The land's the key at Melton, that's the key. There's, I don't know, $300 million worth of land that we own, and we have got some debt to the government, which will obviously have to be paid back at some stage, and because they haven't got a whole lot of excess themselves.
No.
So, but no, that's there's options. Like Moonee Valley's, it's still on the table. It's probably looking more unlikely than likely, but who's to say, we can't build a track somewhere else. Between here and Melbourne, between Melton and Melbourne, things like that. There's a million options. So, no, I think we're lucky we got the land, because if we didn't have that, would be. And what creep, but...
You can say it on this program. It's an interesting one too, though. If we are trading without a loss, for an investor, maybe like Entertain Sportsbet, but even out left the field out of that, Clark Rubber, someone like that, they say, hang on, harness racing is self-sustainable. Let's invest in it. We don't know what would happen around the corner. Right at the minute, we're still getting over this big debt. Anyone looks it up, says, they've had $36 million worth of losses. It can change very, very quickly. That part's of what can change. So it doesn't mean, as you said, we don't have to lock into Moonee Valley. If Moonee Valley comes up and it's a great idea, so be it. But if not, who knows what's around the corner?
That's right, Paul. And there's, as I look at life, there's always opportunities out there, and you don't know what they are, but, tomorrow a door opens and, you're away. And the funny part about it, it doesn't take a whole lot of money to turn us around, things like that. So, no, I'm really positive. I think we've done the hard yards now. We've, had these stakes cuts the last couple of years, and we've all suffered. But, no, I think, I think the game's in good hands, and, you know, I think there's a lot more light at the end of the tunnel than probably was 18 months ago.
One more question. Melton and a future for harness racing. There's a Wapping school that is expanding every time I drive past it just here. The urban sprawl is basically coming up to here. And I think if you go on the GPS maps, there's like 6 harness racing tracks. Can you see a future? Obviously, the Melton complex will be there, but harness racing itself, can it survive in this area, or is it going to get tougher?
It'll get tougher, Paul. Like Melton's very similar to Templeton, where I come from.
Yep.
When I was a kid at Templeton, there was all the great trainers trained in Templeton. You know,
I've been there, yeah.
My 2 grandfathers, Wes Butt and Derek Jones, you know, the Nyans, Jack Smolenski, Cecil Devine,
yep.
Jack Carmichael. There were probably 10 of the best trainers in New Zealand all trained within a couple of mile, you know, square radius sort of thing. And square radius is not a very good one. but
it fits on this program. It's okay.
Yeah, but and what happened? Templeton got same thing, but built out because the land got too valuable, and the town got bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's probably hardly a trainer left there now. And
well, basically, apart from a couple of signposts of the subdivisions, I think Cecil's colours are there, and there's 2 old stables that Mickey Mouse took me and showed me, but other than that, you wouldn't know it.
No, well, a lot of the streets are new streets are named after the horses, but the same is happening in Melton now. Like a lot of the guys, especially in Rockbank, places like that, around here have been bought out, and even this place, you know, and next door, Gavin's old place, you know, Sammy still owns this place, but developers are knocking down a door every day. A developer owns Gaz's place, and he's just sitting on it, you know, land banking it. So no, it'll all go eventually. So that's where probably the need for a training centre comes in at some stage. But you know, money's obviously a question, but I think it's vitally important we do something somewhere, you know, not too far from here, that people can train and without having to spend millions.
We need a metropolitan base with that part, like or close to a metropolitan base, to get the owners, because we don't want owners travelling, 3 hours. Charlton's got a great training centre, but they've got to travel 3 hours to get there. We need something where they can get to and see their horses and fall in love with them like we all did. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like you don't want to be too far out. And as you said, there are some good training centres around like Shepparton and Cranbourne, but they're probably just in they're a long way away from here, and Cranbourne's a great spot, but it's just the wrong side of town for most people, most harness racing people. So yeah, I think we'll keep working on that, but it's a bit of a pipe dream, but no, there's a few options around, and as I said, I think it's vital it happens sooner rather than later.
Ants, thank you. Don't know how much longer I got on that. Every now and then it shuts down, but it hasn't shut down yet. But I really appreciate it. Going to do more of these with a lot more of the leading participants, and probably some of the smaller participants that have got a horse. These trotters, good class trotter. They're going to be mapping out things now, because you start off with the Aldebaran Park Murray Mile, and there's a great trotting race all the way through. Group 1s, Group 2s, all the way through. So I think it's great for people. There's going to be a lot of people affected by this new carnival, and it's positive, and we want to get this positive news out there. But I really appreciate it. Wouldn't mind catch up. I'll try and catch up with you a bit more often, especially through the winter months, with just updates for people as well from your trainers and drivers' hats, and get the message out there for people if you're okay with that.
No, I love it, Paul. No, great. But it's good to get the word out there, because we know a lot of stuff, but it's hard to you tell people, but you can't tell everyone. So so it's good to get the word out there, so people got a bit of an idea, what's going on.
No, thanks very much, man. Well done.
Cheers, Paul.
Thank you.